Welcome to Awakening Truth Podcast, which is a podcast where women support women in being seen and being heard and sharing our wisdom and our experiences with healing, holistic healing, aligning mind, body, and soul, and really just stepping into the life that we truly desire and that we truly deserve, and just sharing that knowledge so that you can do the same. So, without further ado, please enjoy this episode of the podcast. Hi, Chiara. It's so good to have you here. Welcome back. I am excited to dive into our topic for today. But before we do that, if you could introduce yourself for anyone who is listening, anyone who is new here, who would like to just know a little bit more about you and what you do.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. My name is Chiara. I describe myself as a very curious being. And I've been recently studying holistic health coaching, and I'm at the end now of my training. So I'm starting to offer my services as a holistic health coach. I'm very focused on everything regarding hormonal imbalance, digestion, syncing up with your cycle, just helping you feel more empowered with your health and gaining perspective and understanding of the different challenges that you may face. I'm open for receiving you as a client, and you can find, I guess, my info in the description below. Mm-hmm. It's me.
So exciting. I know anyone would be so lucky to work with you. You just have like this like very gentle like presence that's like, yeah, just like really embracing anyone with unconditional love. And I think that's so important when it comes to working with someone, that they kind of have that approach.
Thank you.
So just reminding anyone who is listening now, before we jump into our topic, that this is an invitation for us to really remain connected with our heart. And as Chiara and I will try to do our best to really like convey our messages from the heart, we would just like to remind you to really listen with the heart and be open-minded. And I feel like that will really allow you to just receive the most from this discussion today. To just remain open to any insights that may help you on your journey. So I think that our topic for today is going to be really important. I think a lot of people are struggling with this. So Chiara, if you want to just introduce our topic for today and what we are going to be diving into first, and just kind of seeing where it goes. But what is the theme for today?
Right. So the theme of today is boundaries. And I feel like it's been a big theme lately for a lot of people. Just the concept of filling up your own cup before you fill others. I feel it's been on the mind or in the experience of a lot of people, because of in a few countries now the restrictions are easing down, and we're like really excited to see each other and to go out and to like catch up on the missed opportunities of those past 2 years being in lockdown and all that. And on the other side as well, there is this, I feel, this collective heaviness that a lot of people have been feeling, myself included, and people that I've been talking to. I feel like it's a big thing happening right now with the war in Ukraine and Russia, and So yeah, I feel like it's a really important time to remind ourselves to how to set boundaries for ourselves and take care of ourselves. And yeah, so that's the theme of today.
Mm-hmm.
Mm.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. Um, I feel like in any moments of crisis, people kind of
Yeah.
forget about boundaries and like it just kind of goes out the window. I think a lot of that has to do with, wanting to feel connected with everyone because I think moments of crisis can tend to bring people together, the sense of unity. I think naturally we want to feel like we're surrounded by support during these times. And so I think in doing that, we almost forego like our own boundaries and what our own needs are in the moment and in service of other people in a way. And like making sure
Mhm.
that other people's emotions are taken care of and that other people's needs are met, and we kind of forget about our own.
Mhm.
So yeah, I
Mhm.
think this is going to be a super nourishing topic for so many people. I feel like I want to ask this question to kind of get us started because some people may not realize that they have poor boundaries or that they're kind of
Mhm.
struggling with this in a way. And so I'm wondering if you can illustrate what it might look like or feel like if you have poor
Mhm.
boundaries.
Right. Um, so right top at the top of the bat, um, I'm thinking of just feeling like you cannot say no to people. Feeling like you always have to say yes that when someone asks you for a favor or to do something for them, or um, it might feel like you're really exhausted, obviously, and just running around to please people. It might feel like, mm, well, for us women, because, and I feel like we're gonna go into this topic maybe more deeply, is because we have this cycle of um, during a month of um, yeah, needing more time for ourselves in the luteal and the menstrual phase. You might, if you track your cycle, you might notice that during this time you're feeling more tired, and maybe you're not letting yourself um, rest in those times because of societal pressure to be productive. And so you might have those thoughts of, no, I need to push through, I need um, to get things done, to be productive. Yeah, that's the first ones that come up in my
Mm.
mind. How about you?
Yeah, I mean that I would say that's a big one is like the inability to say no.
Mhm.
I think no is such an uncomfortable word for so many
Mm,
people.
mm,
I think like when we're kids, we always dreaded hearing the word no.
mm.
And so like when we get to be adults, we almost dread saying the word no, right?
All right.
Um, and
Mm,
yeah, because I think it felt like incredibly limiting also. So it's like we feel like if we say no, we're going to be limiting someone else.
mhm,
But I feel like really what we're doing is we're almost like limiting our own like energetic capacity. Like you said, you start to feel tired and um yeah, like when you're in that state of overgiving, it's like you're not really filling up your own cup.
mhm,
And yeah, I've definitely experienced that in my life. But I would
mm,
say like maybe this conversation will be more focused on boundary setting with others, but I would say what I've struggled with more recently is like boundaries with myself.
mhm. Yep.
Um like
Mhm,
yeah, I guess setting boundaries with yourself could be like sticking to certain practices that you know are going to be beneficial and helpful for you. Um, but in the beginning, I definitely feel like the focus has to be on establishing boundaries with others because I feel like once you do that, it it becomes a little bit easier to then bring that focus back to
Mhm.
yourself, and then it becomes a little bit easier to hold and keep those like sacred boundaries with yourself too.
Mhm. Yeah. Oh, I agree with that. Yes. Yeah, it's almost like behind. I mean, it's not almost it. I feel it deeply that behind every resistance to set a boundary, there is a fear that is linked.
Mhm.
So it's like if I don't know, if I don't set that boundaries, maybe I have the fear of missing out on something. So that's been a big one for me lately. Like if I don't spend time with my friend, if I don't go out tonight, I'll miss out on something.
Mhm.
And or maybe if I don't do this or show up in that way, I'm afraid to be perceived a certain way. I'm afraid maybe to be perceived as a selfish person that takes too much time for myself,
Mhm.
or um or yeah, the fear associated to being productive, to being judged like lazy because we take more time for ourselves, um or like yeah, just afraid that our business might not flourish because we take too much time for ourselves. um and lately I've been contemplating as well with my coaches, um the duality, I guess, behind I mean, yeah, the duality with that behind each fear. It is actually a big there's a desire. So there's this balance of um what is mirroring rather of. So if we take that example before of like, oh, I'm afraid that mm, I'm gonna miss out on something with my friends if I don't go out. We really behind this fear is just a deep desire for connection. Um, and and I guess this I feel like boundaries and desires is such an interconnected topic, because setting boundaries really allows you to walk. It really serves you in walking in your truth, and by owning your desires, you also um, it also propels you in walking your your perfect path or your truth. So yeah, how does that resonate with you?
Wow, yeah. I mean, there was so much that you just said that we could dive into a little bit deeper. It's like,
I feel
it's
like I have to open a bit.
it's but it's so perfect. It's so perfect. I just really wanted to touch on that piece of fear because I was gonna bring that up. I was gonna ask you, where do you feel like poor boundaries comes from ultimately? And I definitely resonate with the fact that it comes from like it stems from fear-based thoughts or actions or that sort of thing, kind of like that FOMO, the fear of missing out. And it doesn't feel good. I would say like any sort of fear-based thoughts or activity, like it's ultimately draining in itself. So I think that also contributes to like why we feel a lack of energy. Um, but yeah, then just like diving a little bit more into like the desires piece. I feel like that's super important because I feel like people are so afraid to claim their desires. Like they're so afraid to like even say them out loud because another word that you brought up is the word selfish, because a
Mhm.
lot of people feel like having desires or like wanting certain things maybe a little bit selfish as well. And I feel like that keeps us small in a way. It keeps us kind of like wishy-washy, if
Mm.
that makes sense. Whereas like if we claim something like, no, this is what I want, it's like we're firm in that desire and we know what our values are. And when we know what our values are and we know what we desire, we ultimately are able to hold like these really beautiful, loving boundaries
Mhm.
then that kind of like act as a container for
Right.
us to move forward in a more powerful and like vibrant way.
Mm. Right. Yeah. You said that really well. Yeah, those yeah, boundaries are literally the container. Yeah.
Mm.
Mhm. I've been in this program called Sovereign and about women who uh, explore what leadership mean for each and every one of us in our unique situation of there are a lot of coaches in the program or just mothers and um, yeah, just we're all on our unique path and we're exploring what leadership means, but not in this feminist, like extreme feminist kind of way of thinking, being like, oh, I'm a strong, independent woman and I don't need anyone, you know. Um, and yeah, I feel like there's a beautiful um there's a beautiful quote that came up in the program. Um, and I know it's more like focused on women, but I truly feel like it's applicable to everyone. Um, but it's a quote by Lennon Doyle. Um, and I'll just read it because I feel like it might ripple through for anyone watching. And
Mhm.
yeah, it says, if women trusted and claimed their desires, the world as we know it would crumble. Perhaps that is precisely what needs to happen so we can rebuild truer, more beautiful lives, relationships, families, and nations in their place. Maybe Eve never meant to be our warning. Maybe she was meant to be our model. Own your wanting, eat the apple, let it burn.
Wow.
Yeah.
That quote just kind of like really sums up feminine power, like the power of the femininity, like the divine feminine. It sums up like our power as women, like really like in our essence, we have the power to create, and we have
Mm,
the power, like we have the power to create like these works of light, you know, like
mm,
these powerful works or like portals of light that can help to propel us forward into a better future and like create healing on a mass scale. And we
mm,
also hold the power to destroy anything aligned with like the darkness that isn't serving humanity.
mm, yeah, yeah, I totally agree with that. And yeah, but at some point, very early on in history, um, we were taught to be ashamed of our desires, I feel.
Mhm.
And yeah, I can hear that from women a lot.
Mm.
The shame behind really owning what you desire and which then can turn into manipulation and um I feel there's this whole archetype of the seductress behind, in a woman of like you needing to manipulate to get what you want because maybe your desires were um, shamed or and yeah, but ultimately I feel like once you really own it, um that's when, like we said, you start to embody your truth and um and I feel like once you really embody your truth, um it's like embodying your truth is also connected to this embodiment of care. And yeah, as it's connected to this embodiment of care, um, it's always in service to something greater at the end. Um, and so it cannot be something that is just for yourself. Don't know if that makes sense.
So it's like it's kind of like when we're taking care of ourselves, it's not just for us. It's not just serving us, it's serving humanity in a way, right? Is that what that meant?
Yeah, exactly. A bit of a complicated route. But yeah,
That's okay. Yeah,
that's
I
the,
felt it. Yeah, I felt it.
yeah, that's the
Mm,
message. Ultimately, filling your own cup is the greatest service that you could do to humanity if that's your intention as well. And I feel like a
mm,
lot of people who are there that want to serve, they don't always realize that taking care of themselves is really the greatest gift that you could do to the
mhm,
world, because you just get to show up for others in your most expressed and fulfilled self.
mhm,
Um, and not, I feel also like saying that not all of us have the like same needs to recharge. Like, I mean, there is the woman and men comparison of like women needing more time during their cycle, but even just if you take only uh, everyone individually, we all have different lives, and we're built in unique ways, and some people need just more rest than others. And
mhm.
so,
Yeah.
I feel like that's an important piece.
Mhm.
Yeah.
I totally feel
um,
that. One word I've been using a lot, like mm, if I'm feeling like this sort of guilt come up or this shame come up,
mhm,
um, or the word pop into my head, selfish, I kind of reframe that or rephrase that as self-serving. Like, how can I be of service to myself right now? Am I being
mhm,
of service to myself or not? Like, I think when we're of service to ourselves, it becomes so much, I don't know if easier is the right word, but easier to kind of show up and be of service to others and to really help them in a more like full way, like to your fullest potential. And when we're kind of stepping up in that way and we're kind of showing up in that service to ourselves and then able to do that for others, it's almost like we're also giving other people permission to do the same thing. Like we're giving them permission to serve themselves and to show up as their like full potential self. And like, wouldn't you rather live in a world of people like that, like people who have full cups and who are just serving themselves so that we can all just like serve each other more fully? Like, to me that would be like a
mhm.
utopia, you know?
No, that would be beautiful. Yeah, I feel it's beautiful what you just said, because sometimes I feel like we forget also the power we hold in showing up for ourselves, of like how it ripples through um, people when they see us do that. Like, right, you cannot change someone if they don't want to change. All you can do is inspire them, like hope that you inspire them by changing yourself. And I've seen that happen so much around me with my family, my friends, just um, them looking at me going through my journey of um, self-love and doing my practices, and at some point they would be either the ones uh, that don't want to see it, that don't want to face it, and just they fall away out of my life. And then there are the others who are like, oh, that's nice, what are you doing, and being
Mm-hmm.
really curious about that.
Yeah.
And yeah, I just feel like, yeah, reiterating that you hold, whoever is watching you hold so much power, and just showing up for yourself, like
Mm-hmm.
be the example for everyone else. Mm.
Yeah. And I would say, like, in general, I feel like more people are curious about it because I
Yeah.
feel like ultimately people, like, I feel like humans have this like innate desire to grow. And even though it might be difficult for some in the beginning, but I feel like most of my family and friends have been generally like curious
Mhm.
about like my practices and like the way that I move through my life now. Because I think want to they want to experience more freedom, and they want to like I think a lot of them didn't even know that it was possible to like say no to certain engagements or to really claim their desires or these things. And then
Mhm.
all of a sudden when they see an example of someone doing that, it's like, what? It's like almost
Mhm.
like they're surprised. They're like, wait, you said no to this or something? And I'm
Yeah.
like, yeah, it just doesn't feel right now. And they're like, why? And good for you. Like they just didn't even know that like saying no was an option for them, you know?
Mhm. I feel like in every challenge that I face, when in every um or rather, if I feel like I want to grow in some area, I have to meet those little edges that feel comfortable, those like doing this, I guess, baby steps into changing this area of my life. When it
Mm,
comes to setting boundaries, I feel it's all about practicing assertiveness and just standing up for yourself. So yeah, it is. I mean, I don't think there is too much of a shortcut. I think you just need to really practice saying no. And a fun way, I mean, not so fun in that situation, but um, a way to practice that, for instance, is when you go to restaurants and there's this awkward moment where they don't bring you what you wanted, or there is like something that goes wrong, to say, you know I didn't order that, that's not what
mhm,
I wanted, can you please change it? And that's setting the boundaries of like, I want that,
mhm,
and no to what they brought you. So that's a way. I know it
mm,
can
mhm.
hurt a lot of
Yeah,
discomfort.
that's a really good suggestion. I never really thought of that before, but it's so true too. Like I can't tell you how many times I went to a restaurant and maybe the order was slightly off or something like that, but I was just like, oh well, I'll just deal with it, like I'm not going to make a big fuss about it or something like that,
Yeah.
because that's how we're conditioned. Like we're conditioned to kind of
Mm.
be quiet and eat what's on your plate, like that kind of thing. um, so maybe some people who are listening can relate to that. So yeah, that's a really interesting and unique suggestion. I would just add to that, like, I think it's so important to really like explore what you want, because like I feel like it's really difficult to actually like voice your needs, like let's say at a restaurant, if you don't even know what you want, for example. Like it would be really difficult to kind of stand up for like what you need in that moment if you're not sure what you want even.
Yeah.
Mm.
Mm.
Which I
Yeah.
guess is like another question, like how do we discover what it is that we want? Like, how do we discover our desires? Because I feel like that kind of like points the direction to our values and to what's truly important to us. And I feel like that's super important when we're setting
Mm.
boundaries. Do you have any like insights on that? Like how we can start to get to know our desires a little bit more?
Um, well, just two things popped into my mind right away. The first thing we already mentioned is maybe you need to discover them by looking at your fears.
Hmm.
Uh, so another example is if you're afraid that your partner is gonna cheat or just not show up there like in a way that you want, it just shows that you have a deep desire for a commitment and deep connection and intimacy and yeah, that
Mm,
uh, desire.
that's,
Um, the other thing that popped into my mind is just experiments. Just well, it could be if you don't know what type of movement you like, and let's say you're always settling for going to yoga with your friend because she does yoga and she wants you there or something, but you don't like it. Um, maybe maybe you didn't experiment enough of what you like, and you don't really have an idea of how you like to move. So yeah, just getting a list of all. I mean, there's so many types of movements, but
hmm.
um, just taking the time to discover that for yourself.
Hmm.
Um, yeah.
Those are good. Those are some really good ideas to just like get people started, I think.
Mhm.
I really liked what you said about like following your fears almost. Like, oh my gosh, I can't tell
Mhm.
you how many times I was also in that situation with like past partners where like my fear was like they're gonna leave me or something, like
Yeah.
if I don't like show up in the relationship in this way, like I'll be rejected or they won't like
Yeah.
wanna they won't want to spend time with me or something like that. Even with certain friendships too, I felt that way.
Yeah.
So yeah, I feel like that's a big one because I feel like ultimately we know what we don't want too. Like we can also use that too. Like we kind of know what we don't want in a sense. And so well, just kind of looking at what we don't want to happen,
Mhm.
we can sort of start clarifying what it is that we do want and
Mhm.
what is important. Like let's say we don't want a partner to or we want a partner to spend time with us, like we don't want them to not want to spend time with us, right? So that means that we want someone who wants to be with us, who actually
Mhm.
chooses us. And then probably like clarifying that even more. Well, what do we want them to choose about us? Like do we want them to choose us for our appearance or do we want them to choose us for like who we are, like for our soul? Like we want them to see our soul in a
Mhm.
way. So that even helps to like narrow it down even more.
Exactly. Mm. Yeah, I really like that.
And then experimenting, yeah, I can resonate a lot with that too. Especially if we spent a lot of our life like kind of going along with what other people want, we might not know really what we like
Mm.
or don't like
Yeah.
because like I've been there too. Like I would, if I was hanging out with friends, like let's say when I was a teenager and they would say, oh, what do you want to do? I'd just be, oh, whatever you want to do. Like that kind of
Yeah.
thing, which it's kind of in my nature too. Like I still do that from time to time because part of me likes to just go along for the ride. And a part of me is also curious to see what another
Yeah.
person is going to choose. Like I like kind of being taken along for the ride and kind of like seeing what another
Mhm.
person chooses. However, not everyone is like that. Some people don't like surprises or spontaneity and they don't want to
Yeah.
go along for the ride. So they kind of just bite the bullet and do whatever someone else
Mhm.
wants, even though that might not be what they want. Um,
Right.
but for a long time, I didn't really know what I liked or wanted to do. Like if I was by
Mhm.
myself, what would I do? Like where would I go? And like what would I spend my time doing? Right. So
Mhm.
if that's the case, then yeah, I definitely can recommend also just like experimenting with it,
Mhm.
trying new things, like learning a new subject, teaching yourself something new, um, exploring topics that you might never have explored before, or just kind
Mhm.
of like following that general excitement. Because I think ultimately our excitement leads us to understanding what our desires are a little bit more.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, totally. No, I agree with that. Um, I feel like, yeah, but I feel like your desires will become much clearer once you look at the resistance.
Mm,
And because that's usually that's what's happened and I mean that's the pattern that I'm seeing everywhere, even with diseases. Once you clear the blockages, it just can flow so much better. So the piece that I wanted to add around fear is I guess a good exercise is to list like your fears um and then under each fear just write down maybe what's the worst thing that could happen to you if that
mm,
fear would come true. And oftentimes, so I just did that exercise today actually. And it's just interesting to see that oftentimes, if I have the fear um of losing a friendship or some kind, what's the worst thing that could happen? Well, if I lose that friendship, it means that we don't really connect it. So that's the worst thing that could happen is that someone that is not meant um for me and my character, and that doesn't appreciate me in that way, it just falls away. And that's actually a good thing. That means there's more space for something new and better to come in. It's like um it's like this fear of maybe if you have this fear of rejection, one way of that my coach taught me to look at it is behind every rejection is actually redirection.
mm,
And so yeah, I feel like that's something that a lot of people might discover, diving into their fears, and then just behind the fear you can make um another list of like parallel list of like, okay, I have that fear, what is the desire behind that fear, and then owning really that desire.
mhm.
um yeah.
Yeah, that's an important piece. Kind of as you were talking, I also the word popped into my head of like settling. I
Mhm.
feel like people are afraid of their desires, so they kind of settle for something that's not really true to them or that's not really meant for them.
Mhm.
And sometimes we stay in those situations a lot longer
Mhm.
than we need to, or a lot longer than we should. Um,
Mhm.
but ultimately it's like the universe has its way of like pushing you along anyway, and whatever is going to happen is going to happen, so you might as well empower yourself to make that decision for yourself and really
Yeah.
claim like your desires rather than settling for something that's ultimately not meant for you.
Yeah, right. Right. And a powerful question, I feel. Thank you for bringing that up, because that opens, I feel, to a really powerful question that someone can ask themselves is, if I keep doing what I'm doing right now, so just staying small and saying yes to everything, how will my life look like in uh, a month or a year?
Mm,
Like, how will that look?
yeah.
And be asking yourself the other question, if I change and if I start saying no and taking more time for myself, how my life will look like in X amount of time.
Mm-hmm.
And really tapping into that and visualizing the changes that might occur in your life. I feel like that could be really
Mm-hmm.
powerful too.
Oh yeah, definitely it can help to really paint that picture. Not
Mhm.
that things are always black and white, but it can help to see like the difference of what
Mhm.
our choices, like the impact that our choices have.
Mhm. Yeah.
Hmm.
And tapping into the feeling, like how will that feel actually? Not
Right.
just the edge of like how it will look like, but how will I feel? Oh, if I take more time for myself, I will feel more rested. I will feel more happy and empowered to serve more, and maybe yeah, maybe more opportunities might come up, and yeah.
Right. And then if we're not, then it's like still feeling stuck and maybe even feeling worse than you feel in the present moment, because over time like that sort of energy builds up and we feel it over time. Like that's when we start to feel like things are a little bit unbearable, and it's almost like there's so much tension that like something's got to give, you know. And so it's like you can have that gradual change, and maybe like you said, meeting those uncomfortable edges, it's not necessarily like comfortable making some of those changes, but you're like empowering yourself because you're choosing to do it, and you're like yeah, you're kind of like what's the word I'm looking for, just like enforcing your sense of self. It's like really establishing and defining your sense of self, which having boundaries definitely helps with like your sense of self, your sense of confidence, your self-esteem, your self-worth. All of these things starts to rise when you're really standing in your power and like claiming those desires and setting those loving boundaries. But if we're not doing that, it's like yeah, like the opposite happens. And instead of like meeting those edges, it's like those edges kind of close in around you, you know.
Okay. Yeah, you just get engulfed by what everyone wants from you.
Yeah. Yeah. Mm.
Main message was really embodying your truth is actually the greatest service you could do to this world.
Mm.
So
I love
yeah.
that. Yeah. I think that's a good thing, for a good like quote for us to kind of leave off on.
Yeah.
Embodying your truth is the the greatest thing that you can offer. Yeah.
Mhm.
100%. And I feel like more and more of us are doing that. And like in us doing that, we give others permission to do that. And
That-
that's how I feel like that's how we liberate like the world, you know?
mhm.
Um, I really like that word sovereign, like the program that you're a part of. I think that's like a really like potent word that can
Mhm.
activate something in all of us. Like, can we claim our personal sovereignty? That's what like having these boundaries is all about,
Yeah.
I think.
Yeah. And in a way that is not like um that's not coming from this um narcissistic desire to be right
Mm-hmm.
or to establish power, you know.
Mm-hmm.
Like um how can you anchor this intention of being beautifully in service without rather than having this narcissistic desire to be
Mm-hmm.
right.
Oh
uh,
yeah, yeah. It's not that.
and I feel like people feel it without even um you speaking the intention. Maybe people feel it when you speak your truth and
Mm-hmm.
when you are have those good intentions.
Mm.
um
Yeah.
and yeah, knowing that people you won't please everyone. um and but there are so many people that will embark on your train, your truth train.
Yeah, absolutely. There are definitely so many people who will kind of get in line behind you and like wanna do as you do in a way, but in their own way, you know.
Yeah, yeah,
Mhm.
yeah. So
Yeah.
it's just become so like when you don't have like an agenda of power, there's just like this ecstatic way of expressing your truth, and you're
Hmm.
just so excited about life and just speaking and expressing yourself in the way that wants to come up.
Hmm. Yeah, absolutely. Well, I think that's a wonderful message, and I hope that we have inspired some out there today to follow their truth a little bit more, to really stand in their power and to start implementing some of these like loving boundaries for themselves and to just experiment and explore with that and see what kind of changes come up over the next, couple of weeks, month or so. Because I think like once we start implementing that, changes can start happening really quickly, even just at like a physical level of just having a little bit more energy and feeling a little bit better from day to day. So thank you
Exactly.
so much for joining. And yeah, just
Thank
really looking
you.
forward to connecting again soon and having you on again.
Thank
If
you.
so, just to remind anyone who is interested in working with you, how they can get in touch with you.
Yeah, I'm available through, I don't have a website yet, but I'm available through my Instagram. And yeah, that's my main, the
Hmm.
main way you can get from me.
Okay. And what kind of coaching services are you offering in the beginning, if you know?
So I'm building my program right now. And yeah, it's all about touching on nutrition, mindset, and the movement. Um, uh, yeah, just everything I said at the beginning. I'm touching. It's very focused on. It can be very focused on hormonal imbalance, digestion, your cycle.
Hmm.
But if you have any other concerns or struggling with anything else, really, we can dive into that. And yeah, I would be so happy to know your story, whoever's and
Mm,
uh, looking forward to connect.
yeah, anyone who just needs like even emotional support can be so beneficial on a healing journey. So
Yeah, and
anyway,
I want to add that I guess one way I that is different from uh in a way that I work is that I am there to also support and hold the client accountable
mm,
for everything they do. So there's 24/7 support on through WhatsApp and or any other platform um, during the program, and so many other good things that you can check out on my Instagram.
mm, that sounds wonderful. I'm just, yeah, looking forward to seeing more about that on your Instagram as that becomes known and just, yeah, yeah, I'm just rooting for you and
Thank you. Thank you
so
so much.
happy. Well,
Receiving.
thank you so much for joining me today, Chiara. I'm looking forward to having you on again soon, and I'm sure everyone will be happy to see you again soon too. So, mm.
Thank you.
Wow, that was such a powerful, powerful conversation. If you enjoyed this episode of Awakening Truth podcast and you would like to get more, feel free to like this video and subscribe to the channel and do share your own truth in the comments. We would love to know what you felt from this conversation and really just encouraging you to speak and share a little bit of your truth with us today, as that is truly powerful for, all of humanity. I truly believe that we're all connected. So would love to see you and feel you in the comments. Tune in next Sunday for the next episode of Awakening Truth podcast.